Hi, I'm Jay Richards. We are here at the COSM 2022 conference in Washington State, and we just finished a terrific and very energetic panel talking about China and trade with former Undersecretary of State Keith Krach. Keith, it's good to see you.
Well, it's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And so, of course, you know, for people that don't know, you're a longtime businessman, CEO and president of DocuSign, and so, of course, focused on the industry in which trust is most important.
Absolutely.
You know, and then you were appointed and then confirmed under President Trump, really to focus on China and the environment and trade and all this kind of cluster of issues that we're dealing with in China. And so here at the conference at COSM, of course, this is a sort of perennial favorite and a perennial controversy having to do with, honestly, you know, we were talking in the 90s, we thought we'll grow the middle class in China, they will liberalize, it'll all go well. It didn't turn out that way, really. And so you had a tough job, but you talked about this trust doctrine that you developed when you were at the State Department.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
Well, so if you look at what the trust doctrine is, it really takes those trust principles that protect our freedoms. Things like respect for rule of law, respect for property of all kinds, respect for human rights, respect for the environment, respect for sovereignty of nations. These are things that we honor in the free world, but authoritarian regimes do not. They actually use those against us for their strategic advantage. So with the trust doctrine, and they use a thing called the power principle, which are things like co-option, coercion, concealment, intimidation, retaliation, seduce with money. And so what the trust doctrine did, and you know, perfect example of it was the Clean Network Alliance of Democracies that defeated China's master plan to control 5G. Is in one move, one jujitsu move, it flipped it on its back, and it used these principles against them for our advantage. So if you think about it, we weaponized the very principles that protect our freedom, because we're not going to stoop to that level. And whether you're on the business battleground, the sports battleground, or the diplomatic battleground, you want to have the moral high ground.
Absolutely. And of course, in that case, it was 5G and Huawei, which is, I mean, the weird thing about China is I think we have a hard time knowing how to categorize it. So it's not like the communist Soviet Union with all state-owned enterprises. What you have is these kind of massive, sort of private companies that are controlled by the government.
They're all controlled by the Chinese. And by the way, it's gotten worse. Right? I mean, she's cracked down on the private sector beyond belief, and you know, it's really created a lot of business risk, a lot of political risk for companies around the world.
Well, so you talked obviously a lot about Taiwan, which everyone is sort of focused on. I mean, what would you say for Americans that don't follow this? Okay, why is this small island nation, or as China would see it, a province of China, why is Taiwan so important?
Well, there's three big reasons. The first one is it's a linchpin of democracy, and it is the role model for freedom for all of us in the free world. And as I mentioned on stage to General Secretary Xi, what Taiwan represents is it dispels his myth that the Chinese culture cannot live in a democracy, and he wants it destroyed. The second reason is it is the home of the most important industry, and that's semiconductors. And they control the manufacturing of the most sophisticated semiconductors in the world. And so if something happens in Taiwan, it is disastrous for industry and catastrophic for high tech. The third reason is because of where it's located from a military standpoint, it's very strategic. So this is a big deal. And look, nobody wants war. And one of our missions, we developed a 6-pronged mission to really put together a security blanket around Taiwan, and we did it economically. And that is to get our allies to invest. And we did an economic prosperity partnership with them. We did a science, a U.S.-Taiwan science agreement. And then we also did the onshoring of the most important company to United States national security, and that's TSMC. It was the
Okay.
largest onshore in the history.
Well,
at that
and
point.
you mentioned that, so I don't think most Americans know this, that
Yeah.
we have a Taiwanese company that's actually built a plant, I think, in Arizona, is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I guess the folks in Chandler, Arizona maybe know that, but
They
people don't
definitely
realize
know
that.
that.
So that we have these interconnections,
Yeah.
and then other allies that are also investing in Taiwan.
And you know, when you look at that, that was so strategic because even though we invented the semiconductor business, only 12% of the manufacturing is being done in the U.S.
Right.
Intel, Samsung,
yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
all abroad. And we had a tough time getting them off the dime. So when we got TSMC, one of our strategies was, well, this is going to help us get Intel, Samsung, and Micron in their ecosystem. So if you look at that historic $12 billion onshoring, now that has turned into $350 billion
Wow.
of investment in the United States and jobs in the most important industry. That was the linchpin, and that was also the catalyst we used to write the $280 billion Chips and Science Act, which is comprised really of three parts. The first part is the onshoring of semiconductors.
Okay.
Okay, because what happened is a lot of these other countries, they saw how strategic it was, so they bought the business from us.
Yeah.
We had to buy it
Makes
back.
sense, yeah.
This time we can't be arrogant and lackadaisical. We got to keep it here, okay?
Yeah.
The other part was this Endless Frontier Act that we approached Senator Schumer and Senator Young back in 2019, where we said, look, we need federal government funding for $200 billion in research funding in the key national security tech sectors.
Okay.
And because the United States investment had been going down. And what we showed them is we showed that we could 3x that with matches from the private sector and our closest technological
Interesting.
allies.
Yeah.
Right? And then the third part of that was also to fund a lot of the stuff that we were doing in terms of techno-economic statecraft. And tech statecraft was a thing that, that's what they call it now.
Yeah.
I guess we invented it, but that's where you integrate Silicon Valley business strategies with foreign policy tools based on the stress doctrine.
Well, and so what's funny is right before you, we had Eric Schmidt, formerly,
Yeah.
of course, at Google, who
Yes.
has, obviously, in some ways, a different view than you have of China. But at the same time, he also said, look,
We've got very similar views.
yeah, he actually said, look, when it comes to national security, obviously we want widespread trade. We know the benefits of that. But every country recognizes there are certain industries
Well,
crucial
by the way,
to your,
he's like
yeah,
me.
Yeah.
He believes in free enterprise and free trade, but when somebody comes to the market,
Yeah.
it doesn't play by the rules. The market is
Yeah.
no longer free.
Yeah.
It's a fool's market.
Yeah.
So you've got to do something about
That's
it.
the difficulty, especially when you've got a massive growing adversary as we have in China. And
So, we were all fooled, and but now it's time to take off those rose-colored glasses
Yeah.
and treat them not how we hope they would be,
Yeah.
but how they truly are.
I'm Jay Richards. We are at the COSM 2022 conference.